Just jumping in. Welcome back to the studio. It's been a little bit since we've been in here as a group. Today, the topic is 9 tips for making your cardio more effective.
Cardio.
Cardio.
A little more cardio.
Like we're at that, like we talk about resistance training. We talk about strength training. We've talked about cardio in the sense that like, hey, let's be intentional. What are we trying to do? Goal specific stuff. And like, what are you trying to get out of this? Like, are we trying to build cardiorespiratory, just capacity in general? And we've broken down endurance. We've talked about energy systems. We talked about heart rate zones, ways to measure, ways to manage, and ways to be smart in terms of programming. But today, because we're getting towards the end of the year, like it's just like the end of 2025 is kind of rolling up right now, beginning of 2026. I think a lot of people, one of the things that it's still like what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's a pervasive myth that cardio is the best way to lose fat. Like it's the absolute best way to lose fat. And it often gets chosen as the tool, right? The tool for fat burning or caloric expenditure. And even with all the research and all the information and all the things on the social media and interwebs and out there.
Even after all this time.
Even after all this time, people still believe that. I mean, we still have these conversations with people like, well, how much cardio should I be doing? Well, it's not that, we've said this a million times, not that you shouldn't be doing cardio. You should absolutely be doing some cardio work, but it should be focused and there should be a plan behind it. And there should be as much of a plan behind your cardio training as there is behind your resistance training. The weird thing is that's not how people look at this, particularly as they're kicking off the new year. I just did a podcast with Steve. We did a few of them, but one of them was about what basically we were getting salty in between episodes. And I was like, we should do one on all the things I'd be doing if I wasn't trying to get nutrition or diet and fitness results in 2026. And one of those was about cutting calories and then choosing cardio as my way to burn calories or go into that deficit. So my point being in all that is it's the thing that cardio does, or the things that resistance training does. I think the top of the chart thing that it does differently than cardio is it sends the muscle building signal, right? The anabolic signal versus the catabolic signal, which basically means breakdown versus anabolic means build. So, and that has downstream effects, right? If we're doing too much, it's our only form, and we don't get you'll get the heart benefits, the lung benefits, the vascular benefits of that for a while. Just like anything else, there's a progressive overload thing, and then there's also what your body does with that catabolic signal is it becomes more efficient at using less energy to get you through the day, to get the things that you need to do. So the cardio works for a while until it doesn't. So that said, it gets chosen as that thing. And if you go into any major health club, you're going to find 700 square feet of pure cardio equipment. And those, especially at the beginning of the year, will be the most used piece of equipment in there. I mean, I spent years and years and years in those gyms, and it's generally the same people that get on them and they just go, and it's just do more. So if you're going to do it, right, and you should be doing it, but how do you make it more effective? And so this one's not going to be about, these tips aren't going to be about like, hey, how do I program it, right, from like an intensity perspective, duration perspective, distance perspective, and all that kind of stuff. It's more like, hey, if my goal is muscle building and fat loss, or muscle building and maintenance, or whatever, and cardiovascular health, right, and the benefits that this stuff can bring to me, what are some things I might be thinking about? So they're not hacks, they're more tips. There's no such thing as a hack, but this is, I get that's the clickbait. Maybe we'll put that in the title. I don't know when we finally put it out.
Hack your system.
Yeah, we're not doing that. It's like, hey, how do we make this more effective? What are some little things that you might want to know about and to kind of revisit this?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a different direction than a lot of our cardio conversations have been lately. Like you said, I think we've done a lot more of like the details and the nuance and how to track your heart rate and how to build it off a lactate threshold and all these different things. So I think a lot of these things are, even if you're, you mentioned we need to be specific with programming and have intention with our cardio, just as much we put into our other training with our weight training. But these are more tips to kind of how to fit it into your lifestyle, fit it into your current training, and be smart with it, be progressive with it, and not get some of the negative attributes that we were talking about and get more of the benefits. So that's kind of the direction that we're going with it.
Yeah. So it's like, let's improve your health. Let's improve your fitness. let's improve your longevity with this stuff, right? So that's really what it boils down to. So coming right out of the gate, going back to like New Year's coming, new year, new me, and all this stuff is the first tip is, if you're going to start adding this in, or you haven't been doing it for a while and you're jumping back into it, or you just haven't been in working out at all and you're already going, yeah, I just figured I would just go down to the gym and get on the treadmill or the Stairmaster or the cycle bar, party on the bike thing or whatever else as my mode of fitness, not taking anything away from you. But the first tip I would give you is like, don't overdo this for the reasons that we just kind of alluded to at the beginning there, which is the typical thing. Like people will get on and like, especially if you're joining like a group class, it ends up being like, hey, there's a little motivation here. I'm suffering with other people, but we're having a good time. There's music. There's basically a DJ on a bike. You know, like if I'm on my Peloton at home and I'm connected to this instructor somehow, and it's like there's a little bit of fun and enjoyment in it. And if you're consistent with it, right, you tend to get better at it pretty quick. Like you can recognize like by the end of week 1, you're already feeling a little bit better, right? Yeah. And you know, you're sleeping a little bit better. This is good. I'm exercising, and those are all good things, right? But at the same time, it tends to lead to like more is better.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good representation. It's very tied to the idea of it's very fitting that it's the new year. And I think cardio is like the representation of the whole like psycho emotional need to, you know, satisfy these things of I'm starting the year off strong, and people really put into practice like I'm going to get on the treadmill every single day now for 45 minutes, and whether they're not exercising at all or they're exercising less. I think cardio is the thing that they choose that's very easy and simple to kind of just overdo it, and really, you know, obviously this conversation about cardio, but it really should be built in around a very well-balanced training program. That's not just cardio. I know it's simpler to just say, I'm going to go to the gym. I can walk on the treadmill. Anyone can do that. But how do you kind of fit it into that program? And I was thinking earlier when you were saying, we were talking about don't overdo it, is the goal of someone who is let's say an endurance athlete is to improve efficiency in the movement and to improve their running efficiency, their cycling efficiency. So they are using less energy, using less stress to be able to get the same task done. So that's the positive for that athlete. But the negative, like you said, for the person who's doing this to improve their fitness, burn calories, lose some weight is, your body very quickly, especially when you're overdoing it, is going to get really good as improving your efficiency, improving the systems that we're working in a way that I don't want to expend as many calories. I don't want to expend as much work to get the same amount of work done. And so that's where I think it is very dangerous, again, when you are overdoing it just in general. Too much programming is your body's going to get really efficient, and it's going to want to store, not saying that cardio is going to make you fat, but you're definitely going to get less out of the cardio as you continue to do it more and more and more.
Your body's going to adapt, and it's going to become more efficient at being able to do what you're wanting it to do.
Exactly. Which is what you want your body to do if you're someone training for that. But if you're doing this for a good workout, want to lose some weight, want to burn some calories,
and get the heart and lung benefits.
Exactly. You're going to, if that's the primary driver that you're doing those things, and not nutrition, not lifting weights, not all these other aspects that can have a big impact, you're going to very quickly run into a breaking pattern. That first month, that first January, you might lose 10, 15 pounds, whether or not that's all fat. It's definitely not. It's definitely some other things as well. But you may see some initial progress, like you even said with cardio conditioning. Even in that first week, you'll see some improvements of, hey, that day 3 of that run or bike or walk is definitely a lot easier than day 1 was. But what you'll run into is at the end of January, even if you've been dedicated and you really have been getting your 5-6 days a week that you promise you're going to do for the whole year, you're going to very quickly start to halt those results and halt some of those benefits, where you could get more of a benefit if it's more mixed in with a more well-balanced training program and obviously nutrition plan.
Yeah, so I think in kind of wrapping that up, I think like if I was going to give people numbers today, I'd be thinking about it this way. For most people, unless you are a very specific like endurance athlete, if you looked at the percentages, I would dedicate 70% of my time to a program that's rooted in strength training and resistance-based training, and then 30% of my time on the cardio, right? And the cardio side of it, the capacity building side. You're building capacity in both of those things, right? And I think that's a thing that gets taken that people forget about, like the cardiorespiratory benefit that you get from resistance training, not by lifting weights faster, right? Just by simply doing that through a certain level of intensity. So like the 70-30 split, I think is a really good place for people to be, to kind of think about how they're dividing up their time. So if you have an hour, right, in the gym, it might be 15 minutes 20 minutes or to 20 minutes of your time for like an hour to 15 minute kind of zone there. But we'll talk about some other ways to make sure you're getting it done. If it's more than an hour, if you're kind of moving it around in your week or in your day. And that's the next thing. And that would be dosing it, right? And how you dose it or where you dose it. More specifically, like you're just kind of splitting it up. So it doesn't all have to get done at one time. In fact, I think obviously, again, if you're an endurance athlete, there needs to be some real specificity in your programming and what you're doing, what you're trying to get accomplished. But like just the fact where you get your heart rate up, and it doesn't have to be spiked, and we'll talk about that. Like just get it up a little bit above normal. The benefits that you can get from that, from a fitness perspective, but also from the health benefit perspective, are super high. So again, I think people think like, oh, I'm going to the gym and I have to get 30 minutes of cardio done. Well, if you did 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes after your workout, right, you're still getting the same duration. It's just like when we look at total volume of time, right, or total volume with regard to the reps and sets that we do in our resistance training program. It's the same. I could dose it. I could split it up both in the day, over a course of days, the week, right? And it's at the end of the day, as long as I've hit my total volume, like my body doesn't know whether I'm, doing 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Now, that will impact the energy systems that you might be using. And again, going back to those more technical conversations about capacity building, like what heart rate am I working at and how long and can I go for or should I go for and those kind of things. That's not what we're talking about. Just splitting it up a little bit.
Yeah. And I think for, the individual like this, we're talking about, the benefits of splitting it up and we were talking about not overdoing it, but a lot of the benefits of the psychology of breaking it up throughout your day. With cardio, you need to be very, very consistent. You don't need to overdo it, but you do need to be trying to impact it several days a week, every week. You don't want to take these, do 3 days and then not do it for 2 weeks and things like that. So that's the side of not overdoing it. But really psychological benefits and a lot of the issues we have in society now is sitting too much throughout the day. So let alone even just you're improving your cardio, but moving more, having a little bit of that intent, even if it's a more intense walk in the morning and then having that maybe midday at your lunch break after you've been sitting at the computer for 5 hours and then having it again later. I would argue there's a lot more total benefit, even if again, it's not impacting some of the energy systems in the exact same ways, but you're still getting it in. And I think you're going to have more of a emotional and psychological and mental benefit from that. So
yeah, I mean, for me, that is certainly the case. Like the last place and thing I want to be doing is getting on some piece of cardio equipment, quote unquote cardio equipment in the gym. I loathe it.
Hamster wheel.
I cannot stand it, right? Like I will do it because it's part of the process or the thing that I need to do during the day, but I don't enjoy that at all. Like any cardio that I'm looking for it in other modalities. I'm trying to get outside and do stuff. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But to that point, like, again, I say that like tip number 3 here is don't discount walking. Walking is an outstanding way to improve these things. And again, I think people think about cardio as if I'm not sweating and my tongue hanging out, my lungs draped over the handlebars on the bike or the console on the Stairmaster or the treadmill, I'm not getting my cardio work done. False, right? Like again, it's really what we're trying to do is just kind of ramp that heart rate up a little bit beyond and get those muscles working, which is really what we're doing. We're getting the muscles to be, the body to be working, muscles, joints,
increasing blood flow.
Getting some blood flow. That's all we're doing.
Oxygen.
We're just ticking that up a little bit. Right? It could be a brisk walk, it could be a slow walk, but it's not sitting, which is to what you just alluded to. Is like that's what we do most of the day. Most people do most of the day. So walking is a great way to get people. So a lot of people go, that's not exercise. Well, stop thinking about it as that, right? Think if we're like cardio doesn't necessarily need to be related to exercise. It's more related to movement.
Well, and again, it's related to movement. And, with society now, when you were walking to school and walking to your job and walking all these places and you're on your feet all day, maybe, let's say 100 years ago, walking was a little less important, but it really is like the bottom baseline of that period that we've talked about for baseline for fitness, especially your cardiorespiratory fitness. So I know a lot of people who train very intensely. Maybe they do the Peloton very often and they really get after it, but then their steps for the day is very, very, very low. And yes, there's still benefit to doing the Peloton, but you're trying to build this really tall tower with a very not wide base, right? If you don't have that base of general movement. And I love what you're talking to about like even with blood flow, even like lymphatic drainage, like that needs to be an active thing to be able to get rid of waste products from inflammation from exercise, things like that. So getting more moving, getting more muscle pumps through to get your blood can improve recovery, can improve mobility, can improve all these other blood sugar, which we'll definitely talk about in the next tip as well. So.
I was going to say, as far as, you're talking about the Peloton versus walking. Well, the other thing to think about too is the ground contacts that you're making when you're walking. It's the weight bearing, forces that you're putting on your body. So it's also really good for bone density.
Yeah. Especially depending where you're at, like, especially if you're more.
Yeah. Again, so going beyond the benefits, I mean, the other thing about walking is it's so easy to do. You don't need
Very
equipment.
accessible.
You don't need to put on gym clothes. You don't need to get to the gym to do it.
You don't have to put on a weight vest.
I think that's one of the things that people start to confine themselves when they're doing the cardio and they're thinking, I have to go to the gym. I have to get on the treadmill. I have to get on the bike. I have to get on the stair climber. Oh, I can't get on the bike. I can't get on the stair climber. I'm not going to get my cardio in.
Right.
When
You've been outside today.
They start to confine themselves. And then it's like, oh, well, I didn't get to the gym. I didn't get my cardio in, so I'm failing. Right. Oh, well, I might as well just throw my hands up in the air and I'm done.
Yeah, that's a really good case or to back up what Ryan was saying there about the psychological and emotional benefits of it. And so anybody can do this, right? Like, and you can do it anywhere. Again, so like moving on to the next thing, and I think this is, again, the word alluded, you're kind of foreshadowing what we're going to talk about next, and that is when to do it. And a great time to do this stuff, particularly like the walking piece that we've just talked about, is post meals, right? Getting after the meals. And there's a lot of reasons why, but one of those reasons more specifically is controlling blood sugar, but more specifically the insulin response that your body has. And when you put that, when you put food in your system, whether it's carbohydrate, fat, or protein, like there's going to be an insulin response to that. And particularly for people that they're just getting back into this or out of shape or haven't been doing it for a while or suffer from some type of metabolic condition or whatever, not whatever, but something specific where they are less insulin sensitive. That meaning when that sugar does hit your bloodstream, your body doesn't suck that sugar into the muscle cell which is primarily where it's going, right, to be utilized as energy. And so because it's not so sensitive and that's not happening, it's much more likely to be converted and ultimately stored or not utilized. So not utilized and then ultimately stored. So especially if you're not doing any resistance training, right? So, which is the primary fuel source that's being used when you're doing your resistance training and you start to, you get deeper into your workout. Like that is the best fuel source. So after you eat and you go out and now this blood sugar is starting to hit your system, you are getting those muscles moving again, right? And you're creating a demand for them to absorb these nutrients, the sugar, right, that you put into your system, these nutrients into your system, and which in turn then can make you more insulin sensitive because it's not having to release so much, right? It's not overloaded at the same time, right? To where, again, now your body is more efficient at uptaking it so that it can utilize it versus storing it.
Yeah, which I mean, I don't want to say, I hate throwing out numbers because I don't know the exact data, but the large majority of adults now in the US that are diabetic or pre-diabetic, and large majority of adults in the US that are undiagnosed for being pre-diabetic, it's somewhere up in the 2/3 more, 3/4 of the population now. So this is a really great lever that you can pull to help manage that, especially if you are pre-diabetic or diabetic. And then on the other thing, I think it's really, for me, it's something that it's very beneficial as a time to kind of connect with others, connect with your family, especially if it's, if you just had a meal with my spouse. I like to try to go on a walk with her after dinner. It's a great way for us to connect, put the phones away, talk.
10 minutes.
10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. But those little things add up for connection, whether it's with friends or your family or whatever. So that there's another benefit from there outside of just the physiological benefit.
Yeah.
I was going to say, just a little story here. I was talking to a client and she started doing some walks after dinner with her kids, and her kids are in high school and they also have a family dog. And so this has been a really great way for them to spend some quality time together after the family dinner. And then, they can connect and it's like 15, 20 minutes, and then they come back to the house and they do their own things.
Yeah, it's a great way to kind of wind down. I mean, one of the worst things you can do is eat a huge meal and then sit, right?
Yep. Which is what everyone does.
So if you do that and then you feel that insulin spike, right, and then your body's trying to balance that out, and you go into what's often referred to as like the diabetic coma, right? Yeah. You start to feel sleepy and tired. You can avoid that by getting out and getting a little activity. It starts to aid the digestion, right? It as that digestion is happening, it gets things moving, right? It gets your muscles moving, gets your GI tract moving, and it gets again, and it can help with this insulin sensitivity piece. But to that point, like, yeah, you get away from the phones, right? You're outside, you get some vitamin D, you get some fresh air, you say hi to the neighbors, you're not being influenced, you can catch up, you can have that little conversation about something. I was listening to somebody talk about them going on walks with their kids and having uncomfortable conversations. It was a mom. And this was particularly around the sex talk, right? As she's got some like preteens that are, and she actually works in the field, right? So she's an OBGYN and she does some other interesting things in that field. But the point of that is like, she started to talk to her kids like early on about, things that they would come across or maybe exposed to. And she wanted them to be very open. And we've all been kids. We've probably all been through this at one point. Like, talking about that stuff is awkward as hell for both parents and kids, right? It's just like, oh, I guess we're having this talk now. And you think you're prepared for it until you start having that conversation.
And walk a little bit faster now.
Yeah. And again, like the sex talk, with your kids is a little bit awkward. It's probably going to be. And anybody that tells you any different is probably overcompensating a little bit. It's a little bit challenging. It's like, I want to make sure I'm giving the right information. I don't want to look embarrassed, even though I maybe feel a little awkward in doing this. And the point of that is, whether it's that talk or some other talk about what's going on, you're walking down the street or walking in the park or whatever you're doing. Again, you can do this anywhere. You're not having to have face-to-face eye contact, right? Like there's, it's like a neutral environment. We're not trapped in a room, we're at the dinner table, which is probably, maybe that's the most appropriate place to have the conversation, but likely not. Like, again, if you've got little kids, it's a great time to get their energy out because their insulin spikes. And, when you feed a kid, right, the next thing they go through, they ramp up, right, and they're going nuts. It's a good way to maybe, quell that a little bit. But I think there's a lot of benefits to that. So around eating after or around meals. So anyway, without beating that one up too much, just the eating after, the walking or getting some level of cardiovascular work done after meals can be hugely beneficial on the health side, the psychological side, the emotional side, and then also the relationship side, if you want to think it that way. So it's one of my favorite tips. I think it's a really good one. And like I said from the top, when we talked about walking just in general, don't discount that. There's a lot of value in that. And I get it. Like, you're not out there in your workout clothes and you're not getting sweaty. Exercise doesn't have to be getting sweaty all the time, right? There's a lot of benefit to just movement.
Yeah, I think that's really, really closely tied to our next point too. We can kind of build on that. So
yeah. So again, and this can all be, again, walking is, we're kind of in the low intensity stuff here, which we're getting into. Like, walking is probably one of the better low intensity, like long steady state cardio type of things you can do. There's a lot of, obviously you can choose whatever you want, but that one's just like the most accessible, the least amount of skill, right? Again, you don't have to put on any special equipment or any clothes or whatever to get it done. But this one is more about, stack it with something that, if you're doing it on your own, or we kind of just talked about it with the family or whatever, stack it with some type of like personal growth or like habit stack, if you want to kind of refer to it that way. So what I mean by that is, maybe strap on a podcast, of something.
Maybe this podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe listen to this podcast.
Listen to Iron Size podcast while you're doing that, or, an audio book, on something that's helpful for you. And when I say personal growth, sometimes that means just totally disconnecting. So if you're listening, or if what you're listening to is the I don't know, the romance novel or whatever, and that helps you down-regulate or whatever, that's personal growth for me. Like, it helps you kind of get out of your own head a little bit and get into something nonsensical. But it could be dialing up a buddy, having that conversation with that person you haven't talked to before. Like, one of the things, it's kind of a tangent, but one of the things that drives me nuts is the time I spend in the car, like commuting, which isn't very far, by the way. But like this morning, it took me 35 minutes to get here. I nearly had a nervous breakdown. I was like, there's so much traffic, right? I was wild. And I was getting really aggravated, right? And Ryan, I shouldn't even complain because of the commute that you make and the stuff you have to go through. He's like, whatever, dude. You have no idea.
35 minutes.
You have no idea. But it should be about a 15-minute commute. Anyways,
it should be a 10-minute. It is 10 minutes door to door when you go off peak time.
But what I found is like at the end of the day, like when I walk out of here, and I'm usually like, well, I got 5 of the things on my list of 25 things I need to get done today. I'm like thinking about that, and so what I'll do is I'll just dial up my daughter, and I'll give her a ring and just say, hey, what's up? And we'll just catch up for a minute, and it makes the drive go fast. We get that connection. And we just, so again, like use that walking time. You're not working at a high heart rate. You don't have to really think about this. It's very low skill, low mental, intensity in terms of what you're doing, and put something in there, or put something in your head, or get something done that can help you. Man, it's a business thing, or it's a workout thing, or whatever.
You know what I found? I found like in the mornings I get up extra early so I can do this, and I'll take the dog for a walk, and I'll strap in my headphones and I'll listen to something, whether it's a book or it's a podcast or something. But I feel like I'm getting 3 things taken care of. I'm taking care of the dog. I'm getting my exercise in, and I'm doing something for myself, because I know when I get home, it's full go as far as with the kid, with the, work, with getting the kid again, making dinner, all those things. So it's just a little bit of time. It's 30 to 45 minutes in the morning that, I'm doing my walking.
Well, and for me, my brain tends to get really like scrambled. And when I have a lot of things on my mind, I'm a very like to-do list kind of person. I have to get things down and get things organized.
High performers are usually like that, right?
Yeah, I have a million things on my brain at all times. And I find sometimes I'll get like anxiety because I feel like I get scrambled sometimes. And a walk is something that, like you said, it kind of makes you focus on that, but it also a lot of times helped me I come back from that walk feeling a lot more organized, feeling a lot more calm, sometimes even when I'll do that, I do take my phone and I write my list of things that I need to do while I'm walking. It really helps my brain organize, and it helps me in a lot of different ways. And go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you find that it helps you to downregulate as well?
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of use it as different ways. Getting organized also helps me downregulate in a way, in a lot of ways too. But definitely, I like to do that at the end of the night, things like that, to help me get ready for bed and downregulate. The last thing I'll say is on calling people. I think everyone could call their mom more. So call your mom on your walks.
Talk to your mom. Yeah, for sure. All right. So this has been very kind of low intensity. We've talked about like it's been very walking heavy. Obviously, you could be doing the same stuff on a treadmill, the same stuff on a stationary bike or whatever. But the next one here comes in is, let's talk about HIIT, right? And high intensity interval training. It is an awesome way to get a lot of work done in a very short period of time. The challenge with this goes back to our very first point, is the don't overdo it part. Like, and so HIIT should be very intentional. And so what we're talking about is like, as an example, like let's use sprinting, and I'm not suggesting everybody should go out and sprint, but you should go sprint for 15 seconds, right? And then you walk, right? Or you just, maybe it's a light jog depending on your fitness level or whatever, and you let your heart rate come back down, right? Let your respiratory rate come right down, and then you sprint again. And you do this for like 12 minutes, right? So you're doing like maybe a total of like 7, 8 to 10 intervals, depending on, again, how much distance you can cover, what your fitness level and whatever. The benefits to HIIT they're unarguable, right? We just know we're spiking the heart rate, we're spiking the respiratory rate, we're driving into energy systems, we're hitting that insulin sensitivity piece that we talked about before. We're creating a demand. There's a little bit of grit, that goes into this. So there's a little mental fortitude that has to go into this, but the cardiorespiratory benefit of it is very high. And because you don't have to do it very much of it for very long, when you think about the long term and what you can get out of this, it's very beneficial versus like going out and hammering for an hour, right? And working into like zones 3, upper zone 3, 4, maybe even 5, and hanging in there. Because ultimately, that's again, we talked about the demand that the cardio training, or the signal, that type of training sends the body in terms of breakdown or energy conservation. HIIT doesn't do that, right? HIIT, you're kind of working around that, because you're asking it to spike up, but we're not doing it for all that stuff to spike up, but we're not asking it to do it for so long that the body recognizes like, oh, I need to down-regulate these things. It does the opposite. It actually up-regulates that stuff, and then you recover, and then you take that time to basically reap the rewards of the time that you've done, the things you've done. The problem with HIIT is, because it got so much notoriety for how many calories you can burn in a short period of time, and then that got lumped in with how much fat you can burn, which is a little bit of a misnomer, right? And you can't be so successful with it. It kind of like overtook things.
I was going to say, it got overused and misused.
Yeah, because I think it's misunderstood.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing right now a fitness challenge at the gym, a 12 days of fitness. And one of the days, it's not exactly HIIT, but it was a 3-minute bout on the rower. I'm trying to get max meters. And in 3 minutes, I was dead toast. I was trash. I thought I almost yacked, if I'm being honest. I did. But I really think it is a really good application for if you are a busy individual and if you are lucky enough, but you have some sort of equipment that's accessible or some sort of way that you can be really intense. If you know, like on Thursdays, you really want to stick to your workout days and you know Thursdays is your busy day and you don't have that much time to get a workout in, you really can get, 15 minutes, get a very solid workout that you're getting, a lot of work done very, very quickly. And you can feel that accomplishment, feel that those psychological benefits we've talked about as well. But you're also getting a lot of high work. I do think it is, like you said, it is something to be cautious because it is a very, very high stressor. Mm-hmm. So if you are also a very busy person and stressed, you need to be careful when you are someone like, hey, yeah, I can fit it on my Thursdays, but I know I'm busy multiple days. I can't just do this every single day because it will really tax your nervous system and have some negative effects if you do it too often. But I really think if you do it well, it can be a very, very high, a tool you can leverage very, very effectively.
Yeah. So the last thing I'd add to that is just with like if your goal is to build muscle, right? Yep. And that is what you're trying to do, or maintain muscle, particularly if you're trying to maintain it like in a caloric deficit, right? There are some downsides to this, right? And again, what we're doing is, I think what people overlook with the HIIT and the overdoing the HIIT and doing it all the time is the interference it runs with the recovery process and or the effort and intensity that you can use when you are in your resistance-based training. So it should be programmed. It's not something you have to do 5 days a week. It's something that you do maybe 1 to 2, maybe as many as 3 times, depending on what your goals are and what your what your fitness level and recovery levels are like, or ability is like, to get the benefits out of it. But again, it often gets overused. So it's more about like, hey, be smart about HIIT, but don't neglect it either. Like going back to like the little fitness challenge that we have going on, these 12 days of fitness that we're doing here. I think some people are getting a little bit of a wake up call, right? To that they probably need to be doing a little bit more HIIT, right? In their workouts or in their life. Let's just put it that way. Yep. Because it's one thing to do something for a couple of minutes and then walk away from it. It's another thing to have to do something for a short period of time at a high output. Then you only get a little break. Then you have to go really high again. Then you get a little break and a little high again. And each time you're getting deeper and deeper into the pain cave. And that pain cave is directly related to your level of fitness, right? So anyhow, that said, moving into the next tip, and I think it applies specifically to that, is the more of something you're going to do, the more you should be treating it as like a training or practice. And so, when you look at this, particularly on the HIIT side of things, there's the intensity starts to ramp up in your cardio. You should be really paying attention to how much skill it takes and how much skill you are able to acquire and then put into the practice of the cardio movement or the cardio exercise that you're going to be doing. And I think this is overlooked a lot. And again, going back to the first of the year thing, again, the conventional wisdom would tell you, if I want to lose weight in 2026, I need to eat less and move more. Mm-hmm. And like, what's most accessible to me, what's easy, and or where did I have the most success in the past, or where do I believe people get the most success? Well, I got to do cardio and I got to do a lot of it. And they start running, right? Which takes skill. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, just go out to the park, grab a seat on the bench, right? And watch what's happening as you're seeing people doing their running, even now, not in the first of the year notwithstanding here. Go out there and watch what you see people doing and how they look while they're running. We as humans are built to do this. This is literally what we're built to do. We're built to walk and run, ambulate, right? And we're very good at doing it when we're practiced at it, right? And when we have the base structure to be able to do it and maintain it for longer periods of time. But you can see when people go out there and they've chosen running as their thing, and it's painful, to watch. You're just like, oh my God, that person just looks like they're suffering right now. And from a weirdo like me that's been, sort of in human performance my entire life, you're looking at people and then you start thinking about things like, God, look at what's going on with those ankles. Look at what's going on with those knees. And I'm not saying it's dangerous and they're killing themselves. Like the human body is an amazingly resilient machine. If you don't believe me, just look at the population of America right now. Like it can withstand
A lot.
a lot of abuse, right? A lot of abuse. And so I'm not saying, if you're not you don't have running with the perfect form, don't do it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, if you're choosing that or whatever modality of exercise you're going to choose to do it, you should be, if you're going to be doing it for longer periods of time, you should be thinking about like, hey, how much skill am I utilizing here? And how am I practicing that? Do I need to maybe go a little slower at this, right? Do I need to decrease
titrating?
Yeah, go back to the dosing, right? And working on that skill. So I mean, that's just kind of my take on like, think about what you're going to do and why you're doing it. Like, am I doing this for heart and health benefits, or is it because I really want to become a better runner? Well, if you want to become a better runner, then you need to be building from the foundation, right? Then you need to practice the skill of running, right? And there's form mechanics, right? And then there's capacity that comes along with it, and how you stack those things on. One of the easiest things you can do is walk, which is why we said that. But the other thing, like the one that I really like, and this is the one I will do like LTHR testing for people on, because it doesn't require almost any skill, is the bike. Very low impact, right? All you got to do is sit on that thing and get your ankles and your knees turning in circles, and we can get through what we need to get through. And then there's not a lot of thought that goes into it. You don't have to be, you don't have to be an athlete to be able to ride a bike, right? Versus you need to be again, going back to what you might witness in the park, what you see happening from one runner to the next. You got the gazelle, right? Who's just like, looks like they're floating, right? Effortlessly. And then you've got this other person, who's out there with hunched over back and the little short arm movements, and they're shuffling the feet and they're just pounding the pavement, right? You know it when you see it. And, I'm always like, you go, go do you. You're out here doing something.
Yeah.
But I have a problem with that, like anything's better than nothing kind of statement, because that's not necessarily true when you look at like, how does this play out over the long term? Okay, you're getting some cardiorespiratory benefit, but what are you doing mechanically to your body, and how is this going to show up for you later?
Yeah, skill and intensity kind of have an inverse relationship. So the more skill requirement to a movement, probably the less intensity you should have, unless you have a high proficiency in that. So kind of on the other side, like we were just talking about HIIT, if you're doing something really, really high intense, that's where something very low skill like the bike is really, really beneficial, because you can focus on the intensity, on the outputs. And then there's kind of that spectrum, like running's kind of, I feel like, in that middle of the spectrum of, there is a lot of running economy. There should be some skill, there should be skill practice. And on the other end, where a lot of people tend to put in some more of the high intensity stuff, is where, things we've had with different organizations like CrossFit, where they put these super high skill movements like max snatches in a high conditioning movement and high intensity, trying to get as many reps as they can in a minute, or whatever the capacity is. That's where you really should really be aware of what your current skill is, where your current ability is, and what your current goal is. Even if you have a high skill in snatches, is that really the best way for you to work on your high intensity capacity cardiorespiratory training? Or can that be done in its own, in its own way with skill work, not even done with the intention of it being cardio?
Yeah. So that's a really good point. And it's not to say that you shouldn't be doing that if you're in CrossFit and going to enter in a CrossFit competition.
Yep. And if you have that ability,
that's what it is. The challenge with it is that, like, that's what people think, they lift weights faster, right? For cardio. And while that can be done and it can be very effective, obviously, depending on what it is that you're doing, what it is that you're lifting, how is the skill that it takes in order to do whatever movement you've chosen for that does matter. So again, think about, like, the more of something you're doing, the more you should be thinking of it as practice, right? Pardon me. And what does that look like from the start to the finish? Right. And so, like, if you're just getting back into this and you're trying to choose something, like, choose walking, right? Then maybe bump up to a little bit of a jog for a portion of that time and go back to walking, right? And then maybe that turns into, all right, now we start out jogging, right? We go a little further and then we back it off to walking as I start to kind of break down, and I'm starting to recognize, like, my skill level at this jogging thing isn't working very well, right? And then we move to running, right? And then you can titrate it the same way, rather than, like, I'm going out today for a 1 mile run. Well, maybe you can't really maintain those mechanics at that skill level for that 1 mile. Get the mile done, get it done in the best way you possibly can with regard to the skill level that it takes to get it done. So if that's a little bit of walking and a little bit of jogging and a little bit of running, and it's a little bit mixed, I don't care how you get it done, just be paying attention. So I think what happens is people are thinking cardio, got to get my heart rate up, scratch how I get it, how this looks. Like one of the toughest things, and I don't think people credit it enough, is swimming. As an example, like if you haven't swam in a long time or done this a long time or done this ever, you get in the pool, like one lap and you're trashed, right? Like your whole body's moving. It's kind of like getting on a ski erg almost, but worse, especially if you're low skill. But you look at the lane next to you and you just got this freaking human dolphin. It just looks like they're barely working. And it's just pure efficiency because they've just practiced, and the form of what they do just looks like ridiculous. And I got to be honest, for as many miles as I swam doing triathlon and all that stuff, I was so jealous and so like I would get mad. When I get in the pool, there was one specific dude who actually worked at the gym that I was using the pool at. And this guy would come out, and first off, he'd take off his, his shirt and, get into his swim trunks. You stand on the edge of the pool and you're just looking at him. He looks like fucking Michael Phelps. And it's like, oh, dude, this dude's like built to be a swimmer, right? And he'd get in and just be like, and he would just go and go and go. While I was constantly worried about like, am I doing this right? Right. And trying not to drown, right? It basically like controlled drowning, as I was practicing the skill, and doing that ramped up the intensity for me. So my swimming was way more intense for me than
that, and you're all
even
muscle.
the running. Yeah, I was just sinking like a rock.
I do not float. You literally just described the scenario with me and my wife, who was a D1 swimmer, and me, who is a very, very, very terrible swimmer. It's literally me. Can I make it to the other end of this pool without drowning? That's my number one goal. It's a good motivator though.
It's like controlled drowning, trying to get out of the side of your own head and control your breathing and everything else. But anyways, yeah. So think about the skill that you're using in there. And again, the longer you're going to spend doing it, the more frequently you're going to be doing it, or the longer duration that you're going for, that skill needs to be refined. So keep that in mind. All right, moving on. Tip number 8 is, and this is a question that comes up less, but it used to come up a lot. And that is, when do I do my cardio training? Should I do it before or after my strength training? And I think there's kind of two ways to look at this. There's not a wrong answer to this, right? But I think there's more right answers to this than there are wrong answers. And I think top level, kind of the way you look at it is like, look, if the goal is to build muscle, then do your cardio after your resistance training. If your goal is to build more endurance, right, and kind of maintain your muscle mass, then you can do it. You can do the resistance training after your cardio. So to be clear, if the goal is to build muscle, do cardio after. If the goal is to build endurance, you can do it before. Yeah. But at the same time, like, that depends. And so again, there's not like a wrong answer to this, but that's kind of one way of looking at it. And here's why, really, at the end of the day. Basically, we talked about that catabolic versus anabolic signal and what cardio does versus what resistance training does. Cardio sends energy conservation signals, right? And the resistance training sends energy utilization, right? And growth signals, like let's stimulate more growth. And so what we know is whatever you do first, this is what kind of the data says, whatever you end up doing first sends the stronger signal, and that's what the body's going to follow. So, and part of this is like energy systems, nervous system reaction to the things that you're doing. So again, if the goal is to build muscle, do it after.
Yeah. So again, you just said this, but I think it really is based on what is more important to you. What is the goal? And you only have so much of that battery, that energy for that day, let alone like the signal, what direction it's going to send these deep physiological and hormonal signals throughout. But you only have so much battery, right? Life. And if you drain the battery doing the cardio, you have to be aware that it is going to impact your strength training, and vice versa too. So it really is, what is priority for you, right? I do think there's still like a little bit of the myth. And I think for me, it led to me not doing cardio for years, right? So if you're the individual where you can only get to the gym 3 days a week, we already talked about walking, making things accessible. How can you sneak in cardio outside? But say you want to get things that are a little bit more intense or a little bit more specific in the gym, get your cardio in. For a long time, it was taught that you can't really pair those together. And there might be some conflicting signals, but for a long time, it made it where, I need to get my lift in. I don't have time to get my cardio, or I don't want it to interfere with my lift at all. So it just led to me not doing cardio. And even if there is some interference, I still think there's benefit for if you're someone who's wanting a well-rounded program, want a fair amount of strength, muscle mass, longevity, cardiorespiratory fitness, it is completely fine. And you will still get the relative benefits of both if you do your strength training and your cardio on the same day, if that's really what makes sense for you. And is the only thing that you can really manage as far as getting to the
schedules
gym. Schedules, all those different things. Don't think, oh, I want to build muscle, even though I know I want to do my cardio. I can only strength train today. Now I can't do my cardio and I can't make it to the gym. It's a really great way to not get your cardio in. So if you need to do your 40-minute strength training and then do your 15 minutes on the Stairmaster or whatever you're doing, as long as it's kind of intentional with all the other things that we talked about, do it.
Yep. Yeah. Again, it still comes up. It's like, what should I do first if I want to burn the most amount of fat? We already talked about this. Like, don't think about this as a fat burning tool, right? Like you should be thinking about it as like, what is the intention of this? The intention should be first, like, how am I building my cardiorespiratory fitness? And then how does that lead to additional calorie burning so that I can burn fat for fuel? And then obviously the nutrition components, the recovery components all fit into that in terms of what we're doing. There's no such thing as a fat burning zone. So hopefully we've crushed that myth. However, it's still plastered all over every piece of cardio equipment that's in any gym that doesn't say concept 2 on it, right? The point being there is, I love what you said. It's like, hey, what are you trying to prioritize right now? What's most important for you? So if I go back to like when Cece and I were doing triathlon, like I was doing my biking, running, or swimming before I was training with weights. And you're going to feel much different, right? Doing your resistance training after doing that. But my goal wasn't to build muscle during that time. My goal was to maintain strength and integrity, my tissues, and also move differently, get me out of, as a matter of fact, like, think about running and cycling. It's flexion, 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 right? Maybe a little extension in your, in your hips and in your knees when you're going into your running, but we're not sprinting, right? We're going for longer distances. So that type of running is not sprinting. So the posterior chain gets very neglected, right? And particularly in the pool, you're getting no posterior chain work in the pool. It's all anterior chain. It's all pulling, right? And flexion, a little bit of hip flexion, but it's all pulling movements. So when I would go and do my resistance training after those type of things, I was more dominant. I was trying to do more workouts that dominated those things that I wasn't getting, that I knew were being undertrained, right? In my cardio training, if you want to call it that, my swimming, riding, and running. So anyway, I love that point, and that is like, what are you trying to prioritize? What's important for you? And if you're like, look, I hate cardio, and I know if I don't do it first, I'm going to skip it. Well, then maybe there's a case for you to do it at the front end, right? Just be smart about how you're doing it, how much energy you're putting into it. And again, this I would recommend, like, this goes back to dosing it. Maybe do a little up front, right? Maybe do a little at the beginning of the day, like get your 10 or 15 minutes in, then do maybe 10 or 15 minutes before you get started with your resistance training. And then if you're battling your brain, right, you're having that conversation in your head at the end of every workout, and a couple of days per week, you can get through that and go, I got to get another 15 minutes in. So you've stacked 30 to 45 minutes of cardio training into your day. Again, going back, like that's all very beneficial, and you're getting your volume of training in, and you're getting the benefits from it. All right, last, and this is, like I said, I think like the most important tip was the don't overdo it part, but this is my favorite tip. Mm-hmm. And my favorite tip with cardio training in terms of making it more beneficial for your health, your fitness, longevity, is find something to do that's fun. More specifically, go play. Go get outside and do something that doesn't feel like cardio to you.
Yeah, this is a really, really big one for me, especially lately. Again, this really kind of goes against, we talk about what zones are you in, what intensity, what are you getting out of the benefit, but sometimes you just got to kind of screw all of that. Like, go move, go get your heart rate up, go play basketball, go get on the bike, go mountain bike, go play pickleball, go do whatever. Bring some joy, and it really can ignite a fire to, enjoy training again, enjoy exercising. I think a lot of people make the gym the thing they do, and make the thing that that's their hobby, and that's fine, especially if you're in that place. But long term, like, the gym should add to your life, not take away from it. So if you're always putting the gym and being in the gym priority over all the other things, spending time with friends and family, doing things that are active and fun that also give you health benefits,
or by yourself,
which I also very much enjoy. Right. I think there can be some downsides to that. I think there's a lot of social isolation in a lot of people who go to the gym, and they're grinding and they're always working, but they're not doing these things that are beneficial for them in other ways that stimulate other parts of their brains and their nervous system that are very, very important for health and longevity. And it's just more fun. Like you said, I can't I can't be a hamster on a wheel on a treadmill for hours and hours. I can't do that.
Yeah. To your point, like I think the gym is like a sanctuary for some people.
Yeah,
and I think,
sure.
I think there's some level of healthiness to that, but I think it can also be very unhealthy in terms of escaping from the things that you probably should be addressing. I've seen as much of that as I've seen it be, the opposite, where it helps people get through some really tough stuff. I've also seen it where people use it and that's where they put everything in a box and they're able to kind of store it there a little bit more.
Yep.
But to your point, like the getting out and play, I look at it this way, and this is just how my coach brain or my trainer brain works. Training for me has always been, or working out in the gym has always been training or practice for something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I always look at it. Not I'm trying to mimic what I'm practicing for in the gym. That's a whole other conversation. We've talked about it. But my point is like, where does this thing that I'm practicing and training, where does it show up for me in my life? Like, where am I getting the benefit of this? And it's often, that's, I think, the thing that's missed. Like, okay, I'm doing this for my health, and where does this show up for me? It shows up for me in my clothes fit me a little differently. I've lost some weight. Shows up for me on my blood panel. Shows up for me when I see my cardiologist or my GP, or, whatever measurement or metric that you're kind of looking at there. But I think that is the most misplaced thing when it comes to working out. And most of the people, and I'm going to say this most, it's definitely not all, but most of the people that I know that really are dedicated to their health and fitness, the gym is just one piece of that puzzle. They are doing lots of other things and they are exploring, and it gives them the ability to go explore other things, to find out whether they might like it or not like it, or they may be good at it or not good at it. It gives them freedom and flexibility to do that.
Gives them a foundation to be able to go and try.
So important.
Freedom and flexibility. I love that.
Yeah. Having a confidence to like, I'm going to try this thing today. How many people, do you know that just will not, like you're on the family camping trip. Like this is something that you're probably very familiar with, or you're out, just with your, you're out on the weekend or whatever. And it's like, hey, there's people want to rent a paddleboard or something. Like, hey, we're at this beautiful lake. We're in this beautiful setting. We're sitting and we're paddleboarding, and people will not even do it because they're like, I don't think I can do that from a fitness perspective. Like they don't have like this confidence, or they don't know, they don't feel healthy. They don't feel fit. Maybe there's a little bit of shame. Like I don't want to take my clothes off because I got to get my bathing suit to go do this. There's a million reasons why they might not do it. And it almost always relates back to, I'm not in physical condition to do this. And that impacts the mind, the emotions, and everything else. So again, going back, like most of the people that I know that are the most vibrant and do all these different things, like the gym is just something they do so that they can do those things and enjoy doing that stuff.
So that reminds me, when this summer, it was in June, we went to Kauai.
Yeah.
And we went on that rafting trip. And when I was looking online,
it wasn't a rafting trip. It wasn't a rafting trip. It was, technically speaking, it's probably, you could call it a raft, but basically we were on a Zodiac,
mm-hmm.
right? And it was a transition Zodiac. It was from the Naval Special Warfare Station that's there. Like, so they down-tuned it, right? They only had like one motor on it. It didn't have all the extra stuff on it. But this is one of those ones you see them ripping across the water with all the dudes.
The disclaimer online was, you should be physically fit to go in the afternoon. If you're looking for a nice pleasure ride, seeing some wildlife and so on and so forth, you should go in the morning and
get on the catamaran or go in the morning.
Go in the morning.
Yeah.
And then for the afternoon, physically fit, so on and so forth. And so we went out, and I mean, it was
the afternoon, right?
I was like, let's do the afternoon ride.
It was so rough.
It was. I mean, we were getting beat up on that raft.
What was the north end of the island? What's the coastline called there?
The Nepali coast.
The Nepali coastline. So anybody that's like, if you remember the movie Jurassic Park, right, that's where that was filmed.
Oh, okay.
It's so lush, and that side of the island, or that island, gets a lot of weather, gets a lot of rain. It's green. It's gorgeous waterfalls. Cece and I are like, let's go see this stuff. We're here. Let's go do it. So that means you got to get in the boat, right? And you got to rip around through. The wind comes off that end of the island, so it's ripping, and that island blocks the wind for a lot of the other islands, on that side. So it was quite the trip.
It was intense. It was awesome. I mean, I remember
your
Scott
hands
was
were
holding
tore
on.
up, right?
Yeah, his knuckles were all torn up as far as from holding onto the rope, between the rope and the raft. And,
because you're sitting on the rails. You're sitting on the edge of the Zodiac.
Yeah, man.
And then toward the end of the trip, they're like, hey, we're going to pull over. Does anybody want to go snorkeling? And we're like, yeah, let's go snorkeling. Everybody else on the boat, like, no, we should get back. It's too rough out here. Like, they couldn't handle it. And I'm like, this is where our fucking fitness is showing up for us.
Dude.
Like, let's rip off our clothes. Let's jump in the water. Let's swim around and enjoy ourselves. And then get back in. And so we were literally the only two on that boat that got in the water, and we swam around, and
everybody watched.
And some guy was like, we shouldn't be out here. It's too dangerous. I'm like, I'm having a great time. What are you talking about?
This is great. Yeah.
The two guys running the boat crew were like, we're seeing that. And that obviously that's part of their job, is to manage kind of what's happening on the boat. And then it's like managing a group workout, you know, kind of thing. You got this level of fitness and know-how, and then you have this level over here, the spectrum. And so there were a couple of couples, there was a little family on there and whatever else. And people were just getting worn
and
out.
some very unfit people.
They were getting worn out mentally. First, it started physically. It starts out great. You know, you're cruising down, like the wind's in your face, the water's supposed to dolphins and, you know, wildlife and turtles and the whole nine yards. And there's the coast, there's the waterfall. It didn't take long, man. And this was like a 4.5 hour type deal. So it was like the endurance level wasn't there. The mental fortitude wasn't there, because as soon as the body starts breaking down, the mind starts breaking down. And this is science, man. Like as soon as you're starting to feel fatigued, and you know, I remember at some points going, man, it is rough, dude. We were hitting some stuff like you.
So much fun.
She was having a great time, right? Meanwhile, my dumpster fire of a back's just getting slammed with everything or whatever, and I'm just going, all right, well, I'm good. Like I can handle it. Like it's not exactly that comfortable, but people are just like, again, it just goes back to like, you spent all this money, you came to the island, you signed up for this trip to do this thing, and you're not enjoying yourself. Man, because you can't.
Yeah, it's brutal. I was getting a little like almost emotional when you were first bringing up this topic, because, you know, I've talked about family members who are older, but, you know, even forget that. I have so many people in my life, they're afraid to do things, you know, that are young, that are in their 20s and their 30s, that are afraid to do things that, you know, they would love to do, that they used to love to do. And they even say, I'm too old, I can't do that anymore, right? But really, they're not in a place where they want to take ownership of their own health and ability to do things. I pride myself in that. If you drop me in any scenario like that, hey, yeah, I want to try this boarding thing. I want to get on that and be confident to do that. And I trust that my body can handle that. And I'm not scared. Even from when I started playing basketball again, I had people telling me, you're gonna get hurt. Don't get hurt. And all these different things. People are terrified to do simple things, and they're not living life. They're not. They're hiding inside. They're on their phone scrolling. They're watching TV, and that's a whole other conversation about society as a whole. But it really is sad. Like, fitness adds to your life. And it adds to the quality of your life, your ability to go do things and experience things. You should not only be able to do things that you love for the first 20 years of your life, and then you hang up the towel. That's a lot of life that you're going to be pretty miserable, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, like if you're trying to spend time with your family and do these trips or whatever, like what are you holding them back from doing, because they know that you can't do this thing. Yep. So anyway, I going back to the statements, like figure out a way to play, challenge yourself with something, do something different,
do something you suck at.
Do something you suck at.
I'm going hiking this Sunday.
Oh yeah, she's going. In the hiking poles, we're going.
Which is a really great example. So we got John in here. So I think, and some of this was semi-inspired by this 12 Days of Fitness event that we're currently running or whatever, and like showing people kind of where it shows up, putting them into a little bit of a friendly competition where there's, you know, there's really no skin in the game outside of like potentially your pride or whatever else, but it's testing people, and they're kind of recognizing like where they are compared to other people. I think that's important. There's no shame in this, right? Yep. There's no embarrassment. It's just like, shit, the 60-year-olds in here are cleaning up right now.
Kicking ass.
They're cleaning up right now. Like they're killing the kids, right? Because they are, and it's based on a couple of basic things. It's based on consistency, right? Over time, right?
Yep.
Those two things, consistency over time, are showing up for them in here, and they're recognizing. And so other people recognize like, dude, these people are really strong. They're really fit. They're doing things that like, I get on the rower, like I do pull-ups, like I do carries. These guys make me do these freaking carries. I do push-ups. Like push-ups are not a thing. When they're seeing what people are actually capable of, and again, this relates back, we're playing. We're having it's a little game is what it is. And so I think there's a lot of value to, at some level, gamifying fitness, and you're seeing that across the board. Like, that was Orange Theory. They gamified it. It was brilliant on their account. CrossFit did the same thing. They gamified fitness. It was like, hey, who's the best at working out? Let's figure this out, right? And then we created all these competitions around it. you see some other stuff like the tactical games. Who's the best at working out and shooting, right? They're figuring out a way to gamify the thing to keep people tied into doing something consistently and over time. And that's what the playing should be. And it doesn't have to be a competition all the time. However, some people, and what you'd be surprised is, again, this is what's kind of surprising for people. Like, they're enjoying this. Like, it's not about whether they're winning or losing right now. And winning and losing are important things. Like, make no mistake about it. To me, like, winning is very important. Losing is also important, right? For a multitude of reasons. My point being is it's not about who's winning and losing. It is for the people that are winning. And the reason they're winning is because they are doing the work and they're doing it consistently, over time, and they're really pushing themselves and they're challenging themselves. The guys that are winning right now are guys like that constantly do that. I mean, the one guy, Mark, right, came to us. He was in, I don't have a problem saying this because he said it publicly. He's actually on our Instagram page, kind of with his little transformation. Where he came to us, he was in very poor physical condition. And that guy has been one of the most consistent clients we've ever had. He's got over like 2,000 workouts with us now over the last however many years. The point being there is he at some point was like, well, I want to see how fit I am. So he goes out and he does, he's done a few races. He's done some stuff with his daughters who are
Spartan races.
Some Spartan races and things like that to challenge himself, not to win it, but to put all this practice and training he's doing into some type of a game or play. So whether it's going out and throwing the having a catch with your kid in your yard, chasing your toddler around, going out to the playground, right, where the jungle gym is, and getting up and getting down and all that kind of stuff, like, that's play. And it'll get your heart rate up, right? You'll get benefits from it, but also the psychological and emotional things, including building confidence, and then giving you maybe a little bit, like triggering that emotion of motivation a little bit to want to work a little harder or do a little more or try something different. So I think we'll talk about this on a different podcast about, like, how do you do that? How do you find that? But look, get a coach, join a gym, join a group. Again, going back to John, we're starting a hiking group here that'll ultimately turn into some backpacking trips and things like that. Like, let's get you to take the thing that you're doing here and actually put it into something that's meaningful. And I'm not saying that getting healthier and being more fit isn't meaningful. I'm saying, like, do something that creates memories. Do something that creates an experience for you that you can latch on to, that motivates you to do the next thing and the next thing, and proves to you how important the work that you're doing is. So relating it back to cardio, we kind of got off on a little tangent there, but relating it back to the cardio, we already told you, like, it can be very simple to build your fitness, right? With walking, low intensity, steady state cardio, LISS cardio, or, long, slow distance training as it was referred to probably before that acronym came up, right? Habit stacking things. Well, okay, it's taking time and that's tough for me. Like, what can I do during the time that I'm doing? Like, something low skill, strap on the headset, put in the Bluetooth earpiece, whatever you're going to do. Talk to your mom, talk to your friends, the things that you should be doing or would get some enjoyment out of as well. Like, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. And I know sometimes we get into the weeds on some stuff and people are like, man, that's a lot. I just want to work out. Well, we've given you some really basic tips to be able to do that, to maybe keep in mind, to, again, enhance the cardio workouts that you're doing to get a little bit more out of them, whether it's more insulin sensitivity, whether it's more distance, more time, whether it's more fitness, or it's more longevity, or it's just more health in general, so that you can do these things. Because I think it all comes down into the end. It's like, playing stops when we're kids, right? Like, we just stop playing as adults. Life takes over. Things are maybe seem less accessible. We have more liabilities and whatever else. So whether this relates to job performance for you, if you're one of those people, maybe you need to take a little harder look at this. Maybe that's your real connection point. Where does it show up for you there? But that's not the majority of people. And again, so figuring out, keep these things in mind, right? As you're going out there and you're selecting the training that you're doing or the programs that you're doing or whatever, like, what's going to be fun? What's going to keep me into this? What's too much versus not too much? What can I truly commit to? How much do I really do? Most people think they need to do way more than they actually need to do to get some benefit out of it, and start stacking the wins.